Like I said, today we'll talk about microfrontends, how you can achieve this architecture using module federation. I suppose some of you already heard about module federation, maybe some of you already use it, but I hope the presentation from today will give you more information, or uh, I don't know, maybe you'll find something new about this. But before going to the presentation, let me tell you a couple of things about me. Like I said, I'm working as community lead and full stack developer at Cognizant Softvision for over 6 years, but I have around 13 years experience in the web development. And I started as PHP developer. And as many as some of you know, 30 years ago, being a PHP developer means that you need to do also HTML, CSS, and even JavaScript. But of course, JavaScript 13 years ago was just some code to do some animation and basic animation, not like today where we have complex frameworks and a lot of logic also on the front end side. And how I did the switch between to the PHP to JavaScript, this happened 3 years ago when I had the opportunity to change the project and work with React.js. And I said that it it will be a good opportunity for me and to learn more about front end and also to develop more the front end skills because I work mostly with PHP and this was a good thing for me. And right now I'm working with Angular. So I switched from React to Angular 1 year ago. I switched again the project and I started to work with Angular and microfrontends. And that's why I said, okay, this will be a good subject to talk at CodeCamp to tell you how you can implement microfrontends architecture using Angular and of course module federation. But that's all about me. Let's see what is the agenda for today. So I will go over a short presentation of what is microfrontends architecture, what are the benefits of using it. Then I will tell you a couple of things about module federation, what is module federation, and what are the benefits of using, and of course a demo how you can use it with Angular apps. So let's go further and discuss about microfunctions. As you know, most of applications from our days have three layers. The front-end layer is the part that is visible and which the user are using it to interact with our application. Most of you probably wrote some HTML, CSS, or JavaScript. The backend layer is the part that is doing the heavy lifting and where all the logic and calculation take part. This is where, of course, uh, in the past I wrote code in PHP, but the backend you can write code in .NET, Java, Node.js. Now I know that Node.js it's something that's it's very high requirement right now. And the storage layer is where you are saving information to be used later. Here I'm talking about databases. Either we are talking about NoSQL or SQL. Just at the beginning, the front end and backend was in the same place. But even then, I know that we try to split this in the front end and back end code. And some of the pattern that we used then was the MVC pattern because we had the model, we had the view and the controller separately in different files. And the advantage of the monolith architecture was that the deployment was fast because everything was come from one place. But for any change, the entire application needed to be tested again and to be sure that everything is working as expected. That was a downside of the monolith application. But after a while, the industry realized that it will be better if the software will be split in front and back end. So in that moment, we started to work to have two different teams, one for front end development, and another team for back end development. One of the reason of the splitting was the fact that if you want to have a good looking UI, you will need people that are specialized on the front end and which have the knowledge to deal with the front end problems, like the compatibility between browsers. Another reason was that in the time the complexity of backend increased, uh, maybe because of the business growth or because of the data that you need to process, and this become more complex for a single team like the team that work with a monolith. That's why we needed two different teams. Of course, I said that on the backend side, the logic and the data increased. And in this moment, when we are talking about a complex application and an application that has a lot of logic, we are talking about microservices. And splitting the backend in microservices was the best idea in this moment, because what's happening? Each team can focus on a single business domain, and it can implement the functionality for that domain. It will gain the knowledge of that domain and definitely will implement better that functionality than I don't know, learning and understanding the entire application. So in the end, of course, the backend was split in microservices. But what happened with the front end part? The front end part stayed the same as a monolith, and that monolith was used to access each microservice to an API gateway. But the thing is that in today's applications, front end is also a complex application. We have logic on the front end right now. We have complex frameworks like React.js, like Angular, Vue, which of course you need a team specialized on the front end. But let's see what we got in the end. What we got was the microfrontend architecture, and the front end was split in microfrontends, like the backend. The backend was split in microservices. The front end was split in microfrontends. By doing that, we can have same design principles as the microservices on the front end. And what are those design principles? I'm talking about autonomous feature. That means that each microfrontend can be independently changeable, deployable, and that each one can have its own repository. So each team can work in different, let's say, even different platform for Git or SVN. It doesn't matter which tool for versioning you are using. The second design principle is the team ownership. And that means that each team should be able to develop an end-to-end feature using the technology or framework that they want. An advantage of the team ownership is that the stakeholders and business team will talk with only one team instead of talking with multiple teams. In this way, the team knows better what is happening there and will understand better what are the requirements. Another design principle is the technology agnostic. That means that each microfrontend could be built using different framework, like I said, and each team could choose the right framework in order to fix the problem. And another advantage is that in case one of the frameworks becomes obsolete, only the microfrontends that are using it will need to be replaced. And of course, we saw that some frameworks are not used anymore today, like XJS, or maybe other frameworks that appear and now are not used anymore. Now the frameworks that are used are React.js, Angular, Vue, Ember. I know that Ember is getting some success now. And another design principle is value driven. This means that each microfrontend is a feature that could bring business value to the end customer. For example, if you want to add analytics to the application, definitely you should not transform that in a microfrontend, but rather to put the code into the shell app. And why to do that? Because, like I said, each microfrontend needs to be needs to bring business value. That means that you are trying to solve a business problem, not to solve a technical problem. And the last design principle is the microservice driven. What that means is that each microfrontend is built to support the microservice from the background. In the end, each microfrontend is the front-facing component of the microservice. And like this, you have a vertical slice, like you can see here in the presentation. You have product UI, you have product API, and between the API and the UI, you have an API gateway to communicate. But you can have you can have teams which are cross-functional, which can work both on the front end and the back end. But you know that team will focus just on that functionality, on that feature, and they will understand better what are the requirements and what they need to develop. If you want to learn more about microfrontends, you can watch my presentation about microfrontends from Programmers Week 2020 from last year. That it's on YouTube. Now let's go further and see what are the tools to achieve a microfrontend architecture. And one of the tools that I want to tell you is Single SPA. Single SPA is a framework for bringing together multiple JavaScript microfrontend in a frontend application. This is it's not an open source framework. You can use it. It's free. You can use it. The last version it's similar to Module Federation. Of course, the next tool is Module Federation, which I'm talking about today. The next one, Piral, it's same as Single SPA. It's a framework that can be used in order to combine different microfrontends in one application. And last one, Open Components. This Open Components, it's an open source framework. This Open Components framework took born at Open Table in 2014. Okay, now let's see what module federation is and what are the advantages of using it. Okay, what is module federation? Module federation, it's a plugin. It's a plugin of Webpack 5, and this plugin, module federation, because we're talking about Angular, it's part of Angular 12, and it's part of Angular 12 because Angular 12 is coming with Webpack 5. And here the difference between module federation and single SPA is that with module federation, each microfrontend can act as a container. And I'll show later how you can do that and what we're talking about. And here I mentioned single SPA because I use single SPA. Piral and Open Components, I did not use Piral and Open Components, but I read about them. But single SPA I use in my current project. I'm using single SPA, and I'm planning to switch to module federation in near future. And another advantage of module federation is that the shared third-party packages will load only once. And with the right configuration, you can even force of using the same version of the packages. Of course, this is a functionality that is coming with module federation, and I will demonstrate later in the demo how you can achieve this, how you can force a microfrontend to use the same version. And here, of course, the version that it's loaded is the version of the first container. And I'm saying the first container because, like I said, with module federation, each microfrontend can be a container. In my demo, I will use the module federation package created by Manfred there. I didn't create a package from scratch. There are a lot of configuration to do in order to use module federation. That's why I started to use this package created by Manfred, and I would recommend to use it. It will help you to generate the skeleton of all the module federation configuration, and you will not spend time in adding these configurations. Everything will be there. It will take you around, I don't know, 30 minutes, 1 hour to put your configuration there, and everything is working. Of course, another point here is that we'll install a custom builder to enable module federation plugin. By default, the default builder that Angular has doesn't use module federation. So you need a custom builder in order to use the module federation. And on this slide, you have the link to the package that I used. Okay, let's look on the demo to see what's happening here. I hope you guys can see my screen and the text is big enough. Otherwise, just let me know. So I told you that we have two applications. We have two microfrontends here, the shell app and the movies. Of course, I call it this shell app, but it's not, like I said, it's not necessarily a container that will combine all the microfrontends, because in the movies microfrontend, you can also add another microfrontend if you need them. I don't know, maybe you need a search in the movies, and same search you are using in another microfrontend. Just create a microfrontend for that search and add it, import where you need it. And let's look a little bit over the configuration of module federation. Like I told you, I'm using this package, Angular State Module Federation, and by using this package and run it, this file was generated by default. I didn't need to write myself this file because as you can see here there are a lot of configurations and you don't want to waste time in writing configuration. Of course, you can learn about them. You definitely need to learn about them. You definitely need to understand what's happening there. You definitely need to understand each piece and each line of code, what is doing. But it will be much easier for you to just use this package and generate the skeleton. Okay, let's see in the shell app. In the shell app, here are the configuration of module federation. These plugins, where you have the plugins, you can see it's webpack.config.js. On the plugin sections, I'm defining the module federation plugin and other shared plugins from the library, from this library. But here the module federation plugin has this configuration. And let me go quickly over the configurations. Here in the movies micro frontend. And what I'm doing here is basically I'm exposing the movies. I want to expose this micro frontend. This is what's saying here. I have the movies micro frontend. This is the file name that it used by the module federation to load the micro frontend. And here, if you look here, I have a component and a module. The problem with single SPA was that I was able to export only modules, not components, not individual components. With module federation, we can do that. We can export either components, either modules. And here the modules, I'm talking about modules which has routing. And if we look here in the movies module, you'll see that I have some routes defined here. I have the main route and a secondary route. It's not a complex application. It's something that was created special for this presentation. So what else we have here? We have the shared libraries. Like I told you, you can use shared packages between different micro frontends. And here I want to use the Angular core, Angular common HTTP router, and this prime and gprime icons are, it's a library with components. I don't want to write my own components, so I use this prime and g. And what's saying this is saying that singleton true. It means that I want to use same package in each micro frontend. Stick version, it means that I want to use the same version, and required version auto. This required version, it's part of this package. It's not coming from Angular, from module federation. It's part of this package. And if you can look here, I have a function called share, which is imported from this package. And this share function, it's a wrapper over the configuration and will transform my configuration, this configuration, in module federation configuration specific for module federation. And now what I want to show you is this useless lib. See, I have here singleton force. And let's look a little bit over the package JSON. Here in the useless lib, I have version 1. If we go to the shell app, let's see what we have in the shell app. In the shell app, we have singleton false again, and for this library, what we have version 2. Okay, so we can run same package with different version on different micro frontend. That's it's not a problem. And let me just show you how this will look. So we have the shell, we have even you can run the micro frontend separately. This is the movies micro frontend, and I'm running this separately. It's not in the shell app. Here I'm running this in the shell app. Basically, shell app, it's right now it's act as a container. And here we have the movies micro frontend and also the code from the shell app. And they say, okay, welcome to the shell app. Shared library, shared lib version is 2.1.0 here. But if I'm switching to the movies micro frontend, saying, okay, this is 1.1.0. Okay, cool. Let's see what's happening if I go here in the movies. Again, I'll say Okay, I want this to be singleton. Okay, good. But here I'll put also true. Let me just start this again. One second to start this. I'll show you what's happening. Okay, that started. Let's wait for the movies also. Okay, this is started. Yeah, let's go here and refresh. See, it's already refreshed. If we go to the shell app, we have version 2.1.0. And here, what version we have? 2.1.0. So we'll have the same version on both of the on both of microfrontends, shell app and the movies microfrontend. Of course, if we look on the package here and the movies, you'll see that we still have version 1. Okay, what will happen if I say, okay, I want a strict version? I want both of them to use the same version. And why? Because, okay, I can use a different version, but what will happen if I'm running this separately? If I'm running this separately, you'll see here 1.1.0. And probably at some point I want to have the same version. So if I take this from here and I put in, you need to put this only in the micro frontend. Let's say in the end, at some point, you will have a container. Either if each micro frontend can act as a container, you should have a shell app, a container where you can combine all the micro frontends. Because in the end, what you want to expose to the end user, it's a single application. You don't want the user to enter in I don't know 2, 3, or 4 applications. You want one application, and keep the shell app as simple as possible. Only singleton here, and I'm putting here this stick version. Let's see what's happening if I start the mic frontend, the movies mic frontend again. Come on. Good. This one, this one. It will still use this version. Actually, it will give you an error in this moment when you are using. And it will say unsatisfied version 2.1 of shared singleton module required 1.0. So when you are using that strict version, you receive an error in the console, which will say, please use the same version. The biggest version will take all its advantage. Okay, how I can fix that? Very simple. I'm going here, I'll say, okay, one version 2. This probably will not work. I will need to run an npm install. And I will say npm run start. One second, I'm waiting for this to load. Okay, this is done. And now let's see what's happening if I share this. Okay, to say 2.1.0 and my error is not here anymore. This is how you can use different version on different microfrontends, or the same version on all the microfrontends, even with strict or without strict. Like I said, if you are not using strict, most probably when you are running the microfrontend separately, you'll have the old version. And in the shell app, when you are combining all the microfrontends, you will have the latest version. Okay, now probably you are asking, okay, how how you can load the movies microfrontend. How you can do that? It's very simple with some routing. Have here the app, have the routing here. Load children, it's a function from Angular, as you know. Load remote module, this is a function from this package. So this is why I choose this package, not only for the configuration for Webpack, but also because it has different function that can help you to write the code easier and faster, like this load remote module. Otherwise, you need to write the code to load the modules and using in the routes. And this is what I'm doing here. Actually, see here I'm specifying only remote name and expose module. I'm not specifying the file from where you need to take that. And why I'm not doing that? Because in the bootstrap here module, I'm using actually let me go here in the main. It's importing the bootstrap. So in the main TS file, I'm already loading the microfrontend here. And why I'm doing this? Because I'm loading only remote entry. Remote entry file, it's just a file with some routes to different files. For example, if we look in the movies, let's see in the movies here in this folder, you'll see that I have different files here generated. I have different chunks of files, JavaScript files, which are loaded based on the page on which you are going. And what I'm doing here is just to load the remote entry.js file. And I'm loading this before because I don't want to use it anymore in the shell app here in the route. Here in the route, I'm just specifying the remote name of the microfrontend. And this remote name here, it's exactly this one from here. It's the same name that I'm using here.
So Mihai, sorry to interrupt. Would it be a good moment to tackle some of the questions that we have?
Sure, why not? Sure.
So let's do, for instance, a very popular one. This one, for instance. Can you combine different front-end technologies using micro-front-end libraries?
Yeah. This is what I'm doing right now on the project that I'm working on. We have an old application, legacy application built in React.js, and the new application is built in Angular. And like I said, we are using single spa, and with single spa we are combining two different applications. The legacy one, which is in React.js, and the new one, which is in Angular. And you can do the same with Module Federation. Module Federation, like I said, is a plugin from Webpack 5. And React, I know that React 18, it's using Webpack 5, if I remember correctly. So you can combine different frameworks. And this is one of the benefits of the microfrontends architecture, because each team can choose their own framework. You are not stipulated from, and not even use a framework. If you want to solve an easy problem, why to use a big framework like Angular? It doesn't make any sense. Just use JavaScript. Write your code in JavaScript and put in your microfrontend.
Right, thank you. And the other one is related to the communication between two microfrontends. How do they share state or something like events, whatever?
Yeah, I know that on the backend side to communicate between microservices, you are using event-based architecture. On the front-end side, you can use the same, but you can use even the shell app to raise events. You can use the browser. Basically, browser it's using events on click, on change, on submit. These are events from the browser. And right now, all the browser supports custom events. Just raise a custom event and listen on the other microfrontend. It's very easy. If you want to do the communication between different microfrontends, raise a custom event from one microfrontend and listen on the other microfrontend. It's the same thing. You can do that. In the end, the microfrontend will be combined. Like I said, you cannot deliver 10 applications to the end user. You definitely need to deliver one application.
Probably you can. Probably you can, but
but the user experience will be bad in that in that moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Then another one which seems to be quite specific, and probably it's
Okay, what's the difference between all this and building with Angular elements? Honestly, I didn't use Angular elements in this moment, so I don't know exactly to tell you what is the difference between all this and building with Angular elements.
mhm. Okay, maybe it's just, well, an alternative,
Uh,
let's say.
yeah, it can be an alternative.
Okay, then I promise it's the final one for this
No problem.
tiny
No
interruption.
problem.
Uh, how do you manage cross-cutting concerns?
Yeah, CSS. Okay, to have the same CSS and to have the same style, what I'm doing right now in my project is to have a library with components, which will use the same style and the same brand. And I'm like you saw here, I'm using that useless lib, use different version. That is a share library between microfrontends. So you can have a library with your components, like static components, and just import them in the microfrontends. This is what I'm doing. Of course, with module federation, uh, I know that Manfred has some blogs where he explained how you can use CSS, but with a monorepo. When you have all the projects in the same application, you can have different module. You can have different module for each microfrontend. For example, if you have a small application like I have here, I wanted to have this in two separate repositories because I want to show you that it's working with two different repositories. But if you have a small application like this, having only the shell app and one microfrontend, or even a shell app and two microfrontends, just use a monorepo and treat each microfrontend as a module in Angular. And in that moment, you can share the CSS very easily. Otherwise, an external library or third-party library, which can be important in both of microfrontends.
Excellent. Thank you, Mihai. And yeah, let's tackle all the other suggestions or questions at the end of your talk, okay?
Sure, sure, no
I'll
problem.
fade off now. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Sure. Okay, so let's continue here. Uh, Here we have the routing part. And like I said, I'm using this wrapper function to load the module. And this is how the module it's loaded and from the microfrontend, from the movies microfrontend. And it's similar with what is doing Angular. We have the load children and we just import the module from the same application. Now we're just importing the movies module from remote application, which is the other application. And of course, that is defined here. See, I have this movies defined here, and it's calling movies module because it's exporting movies module. This is what I'm doing here. Okay, now you saw how you can basically import a module in the shell app and using a module with routing. Okay, what's happening if I want to use just a component? I don't want to use all the module. And regarding the CSS, see, you can have share components. You can have either a library with components, either a micro frontend, and you can expose components to that micro frontend. In this way, you can use the same CSS and same styles. And this is what I'm doing here, basically. In the app component, let me just see in the home component. Here in the home component, I have this ng template with VC. And here I'm using same function. See, ng after unit. I'm using this to display the version of useless lib. But here I have load remote. See, this is commented. If I remove from the main.js one, I just want to show you here what's happening. If I remove from here the promise all catch and import only the bootstrap, if I remove all this, let's say that I want to remove all of this and just import the bootstrap, in that moment I will need this remote entry here to know exactly from where I want to load this microfrontend. But because I loaded this previously, I don't need this anymore here. Either you can specify wherever you are using load remote module, either you can specify remote entry or just put in the main TS. It will be loaded from the start, and you don't need to specify everywhere this. And of course, I have the movies and the expose module, which is shared. But here, what I want to use is just the test component, because this is what I wanted to share from here. Is the test component. That's the only thing that I want to use from here. And of course, this load remote module will return a promise. You can resolve the promise and the component factory. And using this resolver, where is this resolver? Let's see where I have this. Okay, here, component factory resolver. See, I have this component factory resolver. This is basic Angular. It's coming with Angular, and I'm just putting that here. I'm creating the component, and I'm injecting this there. And this injector, I have the view container here. DC, like you saw here, I have an ng template with this identifier with DC, and I'm just putting here in the container. I'm putting this component, and this is how will look. This is a test for a share component from movies MF. And if we search for this text, let's see. If we search for this text, show that it's not a component from the shell app. Just see, it's not here. Okay, let's see if it's some movies. It's here. So I have the test component in the movies, and this is the text that it's loaded there. So very easily you can load either an entire module, either a component. Basically, this is all that I want to show you today. Module Federation has a lot of configuration, a lot of things that can be implemented. I will not demonstrate all of them today because there are so many configuration and so many things that you can do that will not have enough time. 45 minutes is not enough for us to go over each configurations. And let me just go back to my presentation. I have this slide with references. I hope that someone can help me to share this presentation with you guys, and in this way you can have the links, you can have the references. Like I told you, you have the blog of Manfred where explaining how you can use the package and what are the configuration of Module Federation, and of course Webpack 5 course. Just go over it, and you'll find more things about Module Federation, about Webpack 5, and of course the code from the demo today. It's on this repository.
Thanks a lot, Mihai. Thank you. It's a very good walkthrough. So just for me now, for my benefit. So, in a nutshell, when would you use this module federation? I mean, and are there any alternatives?
Yeah, like you saw in my presentation, you have alternatives like single spa, PRR, open component. There are a lot of frameworks, a lot of libraries that can help you to combine microfrontends. And of course, you can write your own framework in the end. Angular components, that custom components, and of course, custom elements can be one of them. So you don't need to use Module Federation. Module Federation is something that was built by Webpack 5. It's something that's integrated with Webpack 5, and all the frameworks in today are using Webpack to generate the JavaScript code in the end. So think about Angular. Angular it's written in TypeScript. You are writing TypeScript there, not JavaScript. Of course, it's like JavaScript, but in the end, it's TypeScript, and you are using Webpack to build and to generate the JavaScript code. Why to not use the benefits of Module Federation?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I got it right, it's more like a matter of preference, and there are alternatives.
Exactly.
And okay. So we've got all sorts of comments here. So it looks like it's been a very engaging type of talk. Had a lot of questions. So please feel free after your talk to maybe interact with the colleagues. Maybe they've got some I don't know points that they would like to discuss. They seem to be very specific. Some of them. Other than that, I mean, how do you see the adoption of the module federation? I mean, I'm looking around at your colleagues and teams. I mean, are they interested? Do they?
Definitely, because like I said, it's part of Webpack, and because it's part of Webpack, it's easy to implement, easy to use, and you don't need another package. If you bring another package in your project, that it means that you will increase the bundle of your application, increase the size of the bundle, because it's another library that you are importing. Module Federation is just a plugin of Webpack. It's just configurations, and it's the way how you can generate your code in such way that will combine the microfrontends. It's not a third-party library. It's not another code that you are bringing to your application. It's not a code that you need to be sure it doesn't have any security issues, because earlier we talked about security issues, and this kind of stuff. So
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm really happy with the answer. So something that I've learned now. Please.
I'm glad that.
Dan, what did you learn?
Yeah, same here, and I hope everybody else did. And yeah, about the presentation, because you were mentioning, Mihai, just send it to us, or we'll ask it of you anyway, and then we're gonna share it with everybody out there.
And since the recording will be available like in 1 week or a couple of weeks on the YouTube channel, then that would be also a starting point and the reference.
Yeah, it's just for the links. It will be easy for the guys to just click on the link and go to that page.